Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, The Medieval Reader. So today I will be discussing the first play that we read for ShakeTube 2017, The Taming of the Shrew. I'd heard from a number of people that this was the most sexist play, that it was their least favorite, so I thought, okay, we'll get that out of the way. And so I had really low expectations going into the play. But it was actually much more enjoyable than I thought it would be. Yes, the humor just wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed it. There is, as Marjorie Garber in the commentary that I've been reading, she wrote a book called Shakespeare After All, and it is this massive commentary on all of Shakespeare's 15 plays. So I read the section for The Taming of the Shrew, and Garber talks a lot about disguise and how disguise is this huge theme in this play. So you have Sly in the prelude who's made to believe that he's a lord, and then you have a man who disguises himself as his wife. You have a lot of disguise where Lucentio will disguise himself as Tranio, and Tranio will disguise himself as Lucentio. So disguise is this huge theme, and not only in this play but also in Shakespeare's time all the women were played by boys, so this theme of disguise is really interesting. For me, I think what really stood out was the theme of freedom and oppression in this play. So while Sly is made to believe that he is a lord, he's not actually free. He's not any more free than he was when he was just a drunk tinker. In fact, I would argue that he has less freedom. He's under the control of all his friends. He's the butt of this joke. He has lost all of his autonomy. And you see the same thing with Kate. Petruchio has played this game on her. And like Sly, Kate becomes convinced that her husband is not being abusive, that this is really the way that a husband is supposed to treat his wife, and that she should be submissive to Petruchio. And the speech at the end, I think Garber's right, is supposed to be taken seriously, which is where all the criticism of this play arises, is that it seems, and I think that that's true, that it has a very misogynistic message, a message that Shakespeare's contemporaries would have more or less been okay with. They would have seen this as great wisdom. That being said, I do still think that there is an irony at the end of the play. And I think the irony isn't in what Kate is saying, but in who it is who's saying it, Kate. And when she talks about how, you know, women should be submissive to their husbands and obedient to them because their husbands do all these wonderful things for them, I think, well, where in the play does Petruchio do anything for Kate? The whole time he's abusing her. You won't feed her unless she obeys him. He pretends that the clothing that was made for her was actually terrible, and so, you know, he's constantly controlling her. So I think that the audience would have noticed, even if they think that Kate's message at the end in the last scene is wisdom, they would still have noticed that Kate's husband is not ideal. Petruchio is a monster. Like, I think that even people in the 16th century would have thought so. And I think that's where the irony is that Kate has been so brainwashed that she doesn't question the behavior of her husband at all. And, you know, the play's ending is a bit ambiguous. There is the suggestion that maybe Kate will come to her senses and realize that she really hasn't been completely tamed. So even if I think that the speech in itself is wisdom, I do think that there is an irony that it's Kate who says this, knowing what we know about her relationship to Petruchio. So that's my thoughts about that. It was really interesting reading Taming of the Shrew after watching My Fair Lady the musical, and I was thinking about the Pygmalion theme. I prefer Bernard Shaw's play, but this theme of this sculptor named Pygmalion who creates this woman, tries to tame her. You know, I think of Henry Higgins taming Eliza Doolittle, and he doesn't treat her as a human being, he's just interested in winning this bet. And I thought it was just so kind of coincidental that I read Taming of the Shrew right after watching My Fair Lady and thinking about this Pygmalion theme. So I liked the play more than I thought I would. I gave it 3 stars. It's definitely a play I would like to revisit, but it was definitely not my favorite Shakespeare play that I've read so far. I would say that Julius Caesar is definitely my favorite, but we'll be getting to that. So I want to leave you with a passage from Marjorie Garber. Indeed, it is one of Shakespeare's brilliant gifts as a dramatist to provide, in almost every case, a credible contrary argument, on stage, to what might seem to be a prevailing viewpoint. The philosophy of Shakespeare's plays is offered always, contrapuntally, with opposing ideas placed in explicit juxtaposition. So, I think that the end is a bit ironic. Other people don't necessarily think of it as ironic. There's some questions as to whether Kate has been tamed or not. And we can all come to these different conclusions. And then modern adaptations often make Kate wink at the end of her speech so that it can kind of downplay a bit the misogyny. And while Shakespeare didn't intend that, that doesn't mean that we can't do it that way. Besides, Shakespeare was writing fan fiction. I mean, these were stories that were already well known in his day, and he was just producing them for a contemporary audience. It really got me thinking about oppression and how an oppressor can convince their victim that this is the way things should be, that it's natural. When Kate says it's natural for a woman to be obedient to her husband, a husband like Petruchio, it's horrifying. So let me know your thoughts about this play, and I will see you next week with Richard III, which I am super excited about. After seeing this masterpiece theater adaptation of Richard III, I was sold. I decided I was going to try Shakespeare again. I definitely, had to read Shakespeare for high school, but I didn't really enjoy it. But I think I missed a lot because I didn't watch an adaptation. So Steve is definitely right. Watch an adaptation. It really does convince you to try Shakespeare again. But Richard III is next week. If you're interested in sort of my thoughts in full concerning The Taming of the Shrew and the last scene, I will link my blog post below. I find that it's a lot easier to have in-depth discussions on my blog than on BookTube, but that's another discussion. So yeah, that's all I have. Bye now.